The sun of 4 was not like the sun remembered from Earth. It was smaller and gave off a pale orange light that made everything look like it was always evening. But after 3 years on this colony world, she had stopped noticing. This was home now. Walked across the dusty ground toward the learning center. It was a simple building made of gray metal and clear glass. Nothing beautiful about it. But inside were 17 small creatures who made her smile every single day. The cubs were waiting for her at the door. They always did this. Their soft fur was different colors, some brown, some gray, some a mix of both. They had big round eyes and long ears that moved when they were happy or scared. Right now, those ears were pointing straight up with excitement. "Teacher, teacher," they called out in their high voices. She knelt down and opened her arms. 3 of the smallest cubs ran into her hug. Their fur was warm and smelled like grass after rain. "Good morning, little ones," she said softly. The people had invited humans to their world 5 years ago. They wanted to learn from each other. They wanted friendship between their kinds, had come as a teacher for the young ones. It was supposed to be a simple job. Teach them human languages. Teach them human songs. Help them understand the strange, hairless creatures that had come from the stars. But had learned more from them than they had from her. She learned that they were gentle. They did not like fighting. They did not understand war the way humans did. Their history was peaceful. They had never needed soldiers or weapons. When danger came, they had always run and hidden until it passed. This made them kind. It also made them vulnerable. Did not think about that today. Today was a good day. The cubs were healthy and happy. That was all that mattered. She led them inside the learning center. The room was bright and colorful, had painted pictures on the walls herself, trees and flowers and animals from Earth. The cubs loved looking at them. They would point at the elephants and ask if all Earth creatures were so big. They would laugh at the giraffes and ask why they had such long necks. "What are we learning today?" asked a cub named Torai. He was the oldest of the group, almost ready to move to the next level of learning. His fur was dark brown, almost black, and his eyes were very serious. Smiled at him. "Today we are going to play a game." All 17 cubs started talking at once. Their ears wiggled with joy. They loved games. They believed that play was the best way to learn, agreed with them. "What game? What game?" asked little Polly. She was the smallest cub with pale gray fur and eyes that were too big for her face. Sat down on the floor. The cubs gathered around her in a circle. They pushed against each other, trying to get close to her. "This game is called hide and seek," said. The cubs looked at each other. They did not know this game. "How do we play?" Torai asked. Held up one hand. One person is the seeker. The seeker closes their eyes and counts to a number. While the seeker counts, everyone else runs and hides. Then the seeker opens their eyes and tries to find everyone. The cubs thought about this. Their ears moved slowly as they worked to understand. "But where do we hide?" asked the cub named. He had spots on his fur like a leopard. "That is the clever part," said. She leaned forward like she was sharing a secret. The cubs leaned in too. "You must find the best hiding spots, places where the seeker cannot see you, places where the seeker cannot reach you easily." She stood up and walked to the corner of the room. There was a small space between a bookshelf and the wall. "See this," she said. "This is a good hiding spot. It is narrow. Only one person can fit. If the seeker finds you, they cannot grab you easily because the space is too tight." The cubs nodded. They were paying very close attention now. Walked to another part of the room. There was a doorway that led to a small storage area. "This doorway is special," she said. "We call it that is a hard word, but it means a narrow place where only one person can come through at a time. If you hide behind the seeker must come through slowly. You can see them before they see you." Little Polly raised her paw. "Why does this matter for a game?" Knelt down to look at her. "Because in hide and seek, you want every advantage. You want to be hard to find. You want to be hard to catch. The best hiders use narrow spaces and to protect themselves. The cubs were excited now. Their tails were moving back and forth. They wanted to play. "Let us go outside," said. "There are better hiding spots there." She led them out of the learning center into the colony settlement. It was a small place. Maybe 200 people lived here, both humans and. There were homes and storage buildings and the old mining tunnels that went deep into the ground. The mining tunnels had been dug long ago when the first found valuable metals here. Now the metals were gone, but the tunnels remained. They were dark and winding and went on for many kilometers. "Those tunnels are perfect for hide-and-seek," said, pointing at the entrance. "Long, narrow passages, many corners, many small rooms. The seeker would have a very hard time." Torai looked at the tunnel entrance with his serious eyes. "Have you played hide-and-seek in there?" Shook her head. "No, it is too dark and too long. We would get lost. But you should remember that place. Tunnels like that are the best for hiding." She did not know why she said that. Later, she would think about this moment many times. Some part of her must have known. Some old human instinct, passed down from ancestors who had survived by hiding in caves and narrow spaces. For now, she just smiled and clapped her hands. "Who wants to be the seeker first?" All 17 cubs raised their paws and shouted at once. Laughed. The sound was bright and warm in the pale orange light of the alien sun. They played for hours that day. The cubs learned quickly. They found hiding spots had never noticed. They learned to use corners and narrow gaps. They learned to wait in silence. They learned to listen for footsteps. By the time the sun began to set, they were tired but happy. Walked them back to their families. Each cub hugged her before they left. "Thank you for the game, teacher," Torai said. He was the last one to leave. "You are welcome," she said. "Remember what you learned today." He nodded with his serious eyes. Then he ran off to join his parents. Stood alone in the fading light. The colony was quiet and peaceful. She could hear people talking in their homes. She could smell food cooking. Everything was calm. She did not know that in 3 days, everything would change. She did not know that the game she had taught would save 17 lives. She walked home, thinking about tomorrow's lessons. She was already planning what to teach next. Maybe she would show them how to draw. Maybe she would teach them another song. The stars were coming out above her, strange stars in strange patterns, but she knew them all by name now. This was her home. These were her people. And those cubs were her children in every way that mattered. The morning started like any other morning. Woke up early and made herself tea. She looked out her window at the orange sunrise. The sky was clear. It would be a good day for teaching outside. She dressed in her simple clothes, brown pants and a white shirt. She tied her black hair back from her face. Then she walked to the learning center, just like she did every day. The cubs were waiting for her. They always waited for her. "Teacher, can we play hide-and-seek again?" little Polly asked. Her eyes were bright with hope. Laughed, "Maybe later. First, we must practice your reading." The cubs made sounds of disappointment, but they followed her inside. They sat in their circle and opened their books, began the lesson. She was teaching them a human poem about the ocean when the sirens started. The sound was loud and sharp. It cut through the air like a knife. Had heard this sound only once before during a practice drill. She remembered what it meant. Danger, attack, run. The cubs looked at her with wide, scared eyes. Their ears were flat against their heads. Some of them started to cry. "Teacher, what is that noise?" Torai asked. His voice was shaking, but he was trying to be brave. His heart was beating very fast, but she made her face calm. She made her voice steady. "It is okay," she said. "We are going to play a game." The cubs looked confused. "A game now?" "What kind of game?" asked. Stood up and walked to the window. She looked outside. People were running. She could see humans and moving quickly toward the emergency shelters. But the shelters were on the other side of the settlement. too far. Then she looked up at the sky. 3 ships were coming down through the clouds. They were black and ugly, with sharp edges and no lights. Had seen pictures of ships like these. Every human in the galaxy knew what they looked like. Raider ships. The raiders were criminals who traveled from world to world. They stole, they killed. They took people and sold them as slaves. They had no mercy. They had no rules. They were the monsters that parents warned their children about. And they were here. Felt fear cold in her stomach, but she did not let it show on her face. She turned back to the cubs with a smile. "We are going to play the biggest game of hide-and-seek ever," she said. "And you must be very, very good at hiding." The cubs were still scared, but they trusted her. When she told them to stand up, they stood up. When she told them to follow her, they followed. Led them out the back door of the learning center. She did not go toward the emergency shelters. There was no time for that. The raider ships were landing on that side of the settlement. She could hear screaming now. She could hear weapons firing. She went toward the mining tunnels. "Where are we going?" Tori asked. He was holding little Polly's paw. She was crying silently, tears running down her furry face. "To the best hiding spot on this whole planet," said. The tunnel entrance was dark and cold. A blast of old air came out when they got close. It smelled like metal and dust. The cubs stopped. They were afraid of the dark. "I cannot go in there," one cub said. "It is too dark." Knelt down in front of them. Behind her she could hear the sounds getting closer. Shouting, running, the crackling of energy weapons. They did not have much time. "Listen to me," she said. Her voice was soft but serious. "There are bad people coming, very bad people. They want to hurt us. The only way to be safe is to hide where they cannot find us." "But the dark," Polly started. "The dark is your friend today," said. "The dark will protect you. Remember what I taught you about hide and seek. The best spots are narrow and dark. The seekers cannot see you there." Tori straightened up. "I will go first," he said. His voice was still shaking, but there was strength in it too. Touched his head gently. "Good boy, everyone hold paws, make a chain, I will lead you." She took out her small flashlight. It gave off a weak beam of light, not much, but enough to see the path. "Stay close to me. Do not let go of each other. If you get scared, remember that we are playing a game, and we are going to win." She led them into the darkness. The tunnel went down and down. The walls were rough rock with metal supports, had never been deep inside before. She only knew what the old miners had told her. The tunnels went for many kilometers in all directions. The cubs were quiet now. They held paws and followed her. Their big eyes reflected her flashlight in the darkness. After a few minutes, they came to a place where the tunnel split into 3 paths. Stopped to think. She could hear sounds behind them, boots on rock, harsh voices speaking a language she did not understand. The raiders were coming. "This way," she said, choosing the narrowest path. The tunnel became smaller. Soon the adults would have to bend down to walk, but the cubs could move easily. This was good. This was very good. They walked for what felt like a long time. The sounds behind them grew fainter. The tunnel twisted and turned. There were small rooms cut into the walls, places where miners had once rested or stored their tools. Finally, found what she was looking for. The tunnel narrowed to a passage so small that only one person could walk through at a time. Beyond this narrow part, there was a larger room with many small alcoves, spaces carved into the walls, just big enough for a small body. "This is perfect," whispered. She gathered the cubs around her. There were 17 of them, all looking at her with frightened eyes. 17 lives depending on her. "Listen carefully," she said. "Each of you will hide in one of these small spaces. You will be very quiet. No talking, no moving. No matter what you hear, you stay hidden. Do you understand?" They nodded. "If someone calls for you, you do not answer unless it is my voice. If someone tries to take you, you bite and scratch and kick. But first, you try to stay hidden. Can you do that?" "Yes, teacher," they whispered together. One by one, she put each cub into a hiding spot. She made sure they were deep in the shadows. She made sure they could not be seen from the main path. Last was Tori. He was the oldest and the bravest. "What about you?" he asked. "Where will you hide?" Looked at the narrow passage, that she had been thinking about since they entered the tunnels. "I will be right here," she said. "I will make sure no one finds you." "But what if the bad people come?" Picked up a piece of metal from the ground. It was an old mining tool, heavy and sharp at one end. A pick. She tested its weight in her hands. "Then I will play a different game with them," she said. Tori looked at her for a long moment. His serious eyes saw something in her face, something old and hard and dangerous, something human. "You are not just a teacher," he said quietly. Smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Every human is more than one thing," she said. "Now hide, and do not come out until I tell you." She helped him into his hiding spot. Then she turned off her flashlight. The darkness was complete. She could hear the cubs breathing softly. She could hear her own heart beating. Far away there were sounds, footsteps, voices getting closer. Stood in the narrow passage with the mining pick in her hands. That was behind her. 17 cubs were behind her. The only way to reach them was through her. She had taught them hide and seek. Now she was going to teach the raiders something else. She waited in the dark, and she was not afraid. Time moved differently in the dark. Did not know if she had been waiting for minutes or hours. There was no light. There was no sound except the soft breathing of hidden cubs and the faraway echoes of raiders searching the tunnels. She stood perfectly still. Her hands were tight around the mining pick. Her eyes were open, but she could see nothing. The darkness was complete, like being buried underground. But was not scared of the dark. When she was a little girl on Earth, she used to hide in closets and under beds. She would stay there for hours, playing pretend games in her mind. The dark had always felt safe to her, like a blanket, like a hug. She used this old feeling now. She let it calm her heart. She let it steady her breathing. Behind her, the cubs were quiet. They were doing exactly what she had taught them. They were hiding perfectly. Not a sound, not a movement. They trusted her completely. Thought about each of them. Little Polly with her 2 big eyes. Serious Tori with his dark fur. Playful with his spotted coat. 15 others, each one precious. Each one a life that depended on her. She thought about their parents. Right now, those parents were probably hiding too, or running, or fighting, or already dead. Pushed that thought away. She could not think about what was happening in the settlement above. She could only think about this tunnel, this moment, these 17 cubs. The sounds were getting closer. She could hear voices now, speaking in that harsh language she did not understand. Raider language. It sounded like rocks grinding together. She heard footsteps, heavy boots on stone, more than one person, maybe 3 or 4. Light appeared in the distance, a flickering beam bouncing off the tunnel walls. The raiders had flashlights. Of course they did. Pressed herself against the wall. She was just beyond in the wider room where the cubs were hidden. The narrow passage was between her and the raiders. They would have to come through one at a time. This was her advantage. This was everything. She remembered reading about ancient human battles, how small groups of soldiers would hold narrow passes against huge armies, 300 against thousands. The narrow space made numbers meaningless. Only one enemy could fight at a time. This was the same thing. The light grew brighter. She could hear them clearly now. 2 voices, maybe 3, speaking to each other in low tones. Then silence. They had found the narrow passage. They were looking at it, deciding what to do. Held her breath. A voice called out in broken common speech, the language that all species use to talk to each other. "We know you are there. We see heat signs. Come out now. We not hurt you." Said nothing. "We find you anyway," the voice continued. Better come out, make easy for everyone. Still nothing. There was a pause. Imagine them talking to each other, trying to decide. Then she heard a laugh, an ugly, cruel sound. Fine, we do it hard way, more fun for us. A single raider entered the narrow passage. Could see his shape now, tall and thick, covered in dark armor. He had a weapon in one hand and a flashlight in the other. The beam swept across the walls, getting closer. Pressed deeper into the shadows. She was wearing dark clothes. Her skin was brown. In the darkness, she was almost invisible. The raider moved slowly. He was being careful, smart. But the passage was so narrow that he had to turn sideways to fit through. His weapon scraped against the rock walls. He came through and into the larger room. His flashlight swept across the space. Saw his face for the first time, gray skin, small eyes, a wide mouth with too many teeth. Not human, not something else. The light passed over the alcoves where the cubs were hidden, but they were deep in the shadows. They were small and still. The raider did not see them. His light moved on. It was coming towards corner. She had one moment to decide, one heartbeat between hiding and fighting. The light touched her foot. The raider opened his mouth to shout. Moved. She swung the mining pick with all her strength. The heavy end struck his arm, the arm holding the weapon. There was a crack of bone. The weapon fell. The raider screamed, but was already moving again. She hit him a second time in the leg. He fell to his knees, a third time across the side of his head. He went down and did not get up. The flashlight rolled across the ground, making crazy shadows dance on the walls. Grabbed it and turned it off. Darkness again. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her teeth. But she was not hurt. She was still standing. One down. A voice called from the narrow passage. What happened? Did not answer. She moved back to her position near pressing herself against the wall. More voices, urgent now, angry. Another raider came through the passage. This one was more careful. He had his weapon raised, his flashlight mounted on top of it. But the passage was narrow. He could not move fast. He could not see well. And he was looking for his friend on the ground, not for a human woman in the shadows. Waited until he was all the way through, until he was looking at the fallen body of his friend. Then she struck again. This one was faster. He tried to turn. He tried to raise his weapon, but she was already inside his reach, too close for him to shoot. The mining pick found his neck. He made a gurgling sound and fell. 2 down. Now there was shouting from the passage. More raiders were coming. They knew something was wrong. They knew it was a trap. But what could they do? The passage was narrow. They could only come through one at a time. Picked up one of the fallen weapons. She did not know how to use it well, but she understood the basic idea. Point and press the trigger. She waited. The third raider was smart. He threw something through the passage first, a metal ball that rolled across the ground and released a burst of light. A flash grenade. Closed her eyes just in time. The light burned through her eyelids, but she was not blinded. The raider came through while the light was still fading. He expected her to be stunned. He expected easy prey. He found the mining pick instead. 3 down. But this one did not go down cleanly. He fought back. He was bigger than her, stronger. He grabbed her arm and twisted. Pain shot through her shoulder. She dropped the pick. They wrestled in the darkness. She could smell him, a terrible smell like rotting meat. His hands were around her throat, squeezing. His vision started to blur. Stars appeared in the darkness. She could not breathe. Her hand found something on the ground, a rock, sharp and heavy. She swung it with desperate strength. The hands loosened. She gasped for air. She hit him again and again until he stopped moving. 3 down, but she was hurt now. Her arm was screaming with pain. Her throat was bruised. Blood was running down her face from a cut she did not remember getting. She crawled back to She found the mining pick and picked it up with her good hand. More voices in the passage, but they were different now, not angry, scared. They had sent 3 of their people into the darkness. None had come back. Smiled in the dark. It was a terrible smile, the smile of a human who had been pushed too far. "Who is next?" she whispered. Her voice was rough and broken. "Who wants to play?" Silence from the passage. Then footsteps going away. They were retreating, running, leaving. Stayed at her position. She did not trust it. It could be a trick. They could be waiting. They could be going to get more soldiers. She waited for a long time. The pain in her arm grew worse. The blood on her face dried and cracked, but she did not move. Behind her in the darkness, 17 cubs stayed hidden, silent and safe. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time was strange in the dark. Finally, different sounds reached her, distant at first, then closer. Human voices calling, voices responding. "Survivors, we are looking for survivors. The raiders have left." "Rescue." Wanted to call out, but her voice would not work. Her throat was too damaged. Instead, she turned on her flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness. It found the bodies of 3 raiders on the ground. It found her, a small human woman covered in blood, standing at it with a mining pick in her hands. And it found 17 pairs of eyes looking out from the shadows. Cubs who had stayed hidden through everything. Cubs who had trusted their teacher completely. "Teacher," Torai's voice was very small. "Is it over?" Tried to answer, but the darkness was pulling at her. The pain was too much. The world was tilting sideways. The last thing she saw before she fell was little Polly running toward her, crying her name. Was dreaming of Earth. She was standing in a forest of tall trees. The sun was yellow, true yellow, like she remembered from her childhood. Birds were singing songs she had almost forgotten. The air smelled of flowers and fresh water. Her mother was there, smiling at her. "Wake up, little one," her mother said. "Someone needs you." "I am tired," said in the dream. "So tired." "I know, but you are not done yet. Wake up." Opened her eyes. She was lying on hard ground. The darkness was gone. There was light now, not much, but enough to see. Her whole body hurt. Every breath was painful. Someone was touching her face. "Teacher, please wake up, please." It was Polly. The little cub was kneeling next to her, stroking her cheek with soft paws. Tears were streaming down Polly's furry face. "You fell down," Polly said. "You scared us." Tried to speak. Her throat felt like it was filled with broken glass, but she managed a word. "Cubs." "We are all here," said another voice. Torai. He appeared at her side, his serious face even more serious than usual. "All 17. No one is hurt." Relief washed over like warm water. She closed her eyes for a moment. They were safe. It had worked. "The rescue people came," Torai continued. "They are outside the tunnel, but they cannot fit through the narrow passage. They are too big." Understood. That had protected them was now keeping the rescuers out. She tried to sit up. Pain exploded in her arm. She looked down and saw that it was bent at a strange angle. Broken. The raider had broken it when they wrestled. "Help me," she whispered. The cubs gathered around her. They were so small, but together they were strong enough to help her stand. She leaned on them, these tiny creatures with their soft fur and big worried eyes. "We have to go back through the passage," she said. "Can you lead me?" "Yes," Torai said firmly. "Hold my paw." They walked slowly, could barely stay upright. The cubs surrounded her like a living cushion, supporting her on all sides. When she stumbled, they caught her. When she stopped to breathe, they waited patiently. They passed the bodies of the raiders. Some of the cubs tried not to look. Others stared with a kind of horrified wonder. "Did you do that?" asked quietly. "By yourself?" Did not answer. She did not know what to say. The narrow passage was ahead. Now she had to go through it. The cubs could not carry her here. It was too tight. "I will go first," she said. "Then you follow, one at a time." She entered the passage. The walls pressed against her from both sides. Every movement made her broken arm scream with pain, but she kept going. One step, then another, then another. The passage seemed longer now than before. Maybe it was the pain. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe time was playing tricks on her again. But finally she saw light ahead, real light, and she heard voices, human voices, voices calling her name. She stumbled out of the passage and fell to her knees. Strong hands caught her, human hands. A man with a familiar face was looking at her with shock and tears in his eyes. "By all the stars, is that you?" It was Dr. Han, the settlement's medical officer. She had known him for 3 years. He had treated her when she got sick. He had joked with her at community dinners. Now he was looking at her like he was seeing a ghost. "The cubs," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Get the cubs." Han nodded quickly. He shouted orders to the people behind him. Rescue workers moved toward the passage, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. One by one, the cubs emerged. Each one was scared but unhurt. Each one looked for immediately, running to her side as soon as they were out. 17 cubs, all safe. Someone put a blanket around shoulders. Someone else gave her water. She drank it slowly, her bruised throat aching with every swallow. "What happened in there?" Han asked. He was looking at the blood on her face, at her broken arm, at the bruises on her neck. "What did you do?" Shook her head. She could not explain, not yet. "How many raiders went in after you?" Another voice asked. This one was official, a security officer with a serious expression. "I do not know," said. 3, maybe 4 at first. Then more sounds, I do not know how many. The security officer looked at Han. Something passed between them, a look of disbelief. "We found 6 bodies in the tunnels," the officer said slowly. "All raiders, all dead." Closed her eyes. 6, she did not remember killing 6. She remembered 3 clearly. The others were a blur of darkness and pain and desperate survival. "How is that possible?" Han asked quietly. "You are one person, a teacher. They were armed raiders." Thought about how to answer. Her mind was foggy with exhaustion and pain, but she tried to find the words. "The tunnel was narrow," she said. "Only one could come through at a time. They could not surround me. They could not use their numbers. Every fight was 1 against 1. She looked at the cubs gathered around her. They were listening to every word. "And I could not lose," she continued. "Because they were behind me, my children, I could not let anyone reach them." There was silence. Han was crying openly now. The security officer looked like he did not know what to say. Little Polly climbed into his lap, careful not to touch her broken arm. The cub pressed her face against his chest and held on tight. "You saved us," Polly said. Her voice was muffled by his shirt. "You are the best seeker ever." Despite everything, the pain, the exhaustion, the horror of what she had done, laughed. It hurt her throat terribly, but she could not help it. "I was not the seeker," she said. "I was just guarding the hiding spot." The rescue workers helped her walk out of the tunnel and into the orange sunlight of 4. The settlement was damaged. She could see burned buildings and broken windows. But there were people everywhere, survivors, helpers, and humans working together. The raiders had left. Their ships were gone from the sky. Someone told her that a defense fleet had arrived from a nearby system, driving them away. But before the fleet came, before the raiders fled, had held for hours, in the dark, with nothing but a mining pick and the desperate need to protect those who trusted her. She did not feel like a hero. She felt tired and broken and sick from what she had done. Those raiders were evil, yes. They would have taken the cubs, sold them, hurt them, killed them. But they had still been living beings, and she had killed them with her own hands. The thought made her want to vomit. A medical transport took her to the emergency shelter. They gave her medicine for the pain. They put her arm in a device that would help the bone heal. They treated the cuts on her face and the bruises on her neck. Through all of it, the cubs stayed nearby. When the medical workers tried to send them away, they refused to go. They sat in a circle around her bed, watching over her like small furry guards. "You can rest now," Tori said. He was sitting closest to her, his dark eyes reflecting the medical lights. "We will watch for danger." "You do not need to do that," said. But even as she spoke, she felt her eyes closing. "Yes, we do," Tori said firmly. "You taught us to hide, now we will teach you to rest." Wanted to argue. She wanted to tell them to go find their families. She wanted to be strong and capable and unhurt. But the darkness was pulling at her again. Good darkness this time, safe darkness. The last thing she felt was soft fur against her hand, little paws holding her fingers. She slept. And around her, 17 cubs kept watch through the long night. When morning came, the parents began to arrive. One by one, they found their children in the emergency shelter. There were cries of joy and relief. There were tears and embraces and whispered thanks. Each parent came to his bedside. Each one tried to express something that words could not contain. Some bowed. Some cried. Some simply stood in silence, looking at the battered human woman who had saved their children. Was awake now, but she did not know what to say to them. So she just nodded and accepted their thanks and tried not to think about the dark tunnel and the sound of the mining pick hitting flesh. The last to come was Tori's mother, a tall woman with the same serious eyes as her son. She knelt beside his bed and took her good hand. "I heard what you did," she said. Her voice was soft and deep. "I heard about the tunnel, about the 6 raiders." "Waited. My people do not understand violence," Tori's mother continued. "We have never needed it. When we heard what happened, some of us were confused, some were even afraid. How could such a small creature do such terrible things?" She squeezed his hand. "But I understand now. I understand that there is a difference between violence and protection, between killing and saving. You did not fight because you wanted to hurt. You fought because you had to save." Felt tears on her own face. She had not noticed she was crying. "Thank you," Tori's mother said. "Thank you for my son. Thank you for all of them. Thank you for showing us what humans can do for love." She stood up and walked away. Lay in her bed and watched the orange sunlight streaming through the window. Outside, she could hear people rebuilding, hammering, talking, living. She was not okay. She would not be okay for a long time. What she had done in that tunnel would stay with her forever. But the cubs were safe, all 17 of them. And that was enough. 3 months had passed since the raid. His arm had healed. The cuts on her face had become faint scars. The bruises on her neck were gone. But at night, she still dreamed of the tunnel. She still woke up with her hands reaching for a mining pick that was not there. The doctors said this was normal. They said it would fade with time. Was not sure she believed them, but she tried to live as if they were right. She had gone back to teaching. The cubs had returned to her classroom. Everything seemed almost normal, except for the way they looked at her now. Before the raid, she had been teacher, the kind human woman who played games and taught songs, a guest on their world, a friend. Now she was something else, something they did not have a word for. When she walked through the settlement, people stopped to watch her pass. When she spoke, everyone listened. When she made a request, it was granted immediately. She did not like this change. She had come to Four to be a teacher, not a legend. But legends, she was learning, did not get to choose what they became. Today was different from other days. Today, the elders had asked to meet with her. The Hall of Elders was the oldest building in the settlement. It was made of local stone, not imported metal. The walls were carved with scenes from history, peaceful scenes of farming and building and families gathering together. There were no scenes of war. They had no wars to remember. Walked through the great doors and found herself facing 12 elders sitting in a half circle. They were old, their fur gray and white. their eyes deep with wisdom. They watched her approach with expressions she could not read. In the center of the half-circle was an empty chair. It was smaller than the others, made for someone human-sized. "Please sit," the eldest elder said. His name he was the leader of this world, the voice of all on four. Sad. For a long moment no one spoke. The elders studied her with those deep, unreadable eyes, felt like she was being tested, though she did not know for what. Finally spoke. "We have read the reports from that day, the security recordings, the statements from the rescue workers. We have spoken to the children you saved." He paused. "We know what you did in the tunnel." Said nothing, she waited. "Our people are not fighters," continued. "You know this. We have lived in peace for thousands of years. When enemies came, we ran and hid. This was our way." He leaned forward slightly. "But you did not just hide, you fought. And you won against 6 armed raiders, alone in the dark, with nothing but a tool for digging." Another elder spoke, a female with pale fur and sharp eyes. Her name was Myra. She was known for asking difficult questions. "We need to understand how this happened," Myra said. "Our people want to learn from this. We want to know what human war doctrine you used, what ancient combat techniques, what military training allowed you to do what you did." Felt something strange rising in her chest. It took her a moment to realize what it was. Laughter. She tried to hold it back, but it escaped anyway, a short, tired sound that filled the silent hall. The elders looked confused, some looked offended. "Forgive me," said quickly. "I am not laughing at you, I am laughing at the question." "What do you mean?" asked. Took a deep breath. She looked at these wise creatures, these elders of a peaceful people trying to understand something completely foreign to them. "I am not a soldier," she said. "I have no military training. I do not know any ancient combat techniques. On Earth, I was a kindergarten teacher. Do you know what that is?" The elders exchanged glances. "Someone who teaches very young children," Myra said slowly. "Yes, the youngest, children who are just learning to walk and talk. I taught them colors and numbers and how to share toys," smiled sadly. "That was my job, that was my skill, teaching small children." Then how began. "I used a game," said. Silence. "A game," Myra repeated. "When I was a child on Earth, we played a game called hide-and-seek. One person counts while everyone else hides. Then the counter tries to find everyone." She looked around at the carved walls, at the peaceful scenes of history. "All human children play this game. It is one of the first games we learn. It teaches us many things without us knowing, how to be silent, how to find good hiding spots, how to use narrow spaces and dark corners." Stood up and walked to the center of the hall. 3 days before the raid, I taught the cubs this game. I showed them how to find the best hiding places. I told them about narrow passages where a seeker can only come through one at a time. She turned to face the elders. "When the raiders came, I used everything I had taught them. I took them to a narrow tunnel. I put them in hiding spots. And I waited because that is what you do when you want to protect people who are hiding." His old face was very still. "You are saying that you defended those children using knowledge from a children's game?" "Yes." "And the fighting, the killing, was that also part of the game?" Was quiet for a moment. She thought about how to answer. "No," she said finally. "That was something else, something older." She sat back down in her chair. "Humans have not always been peaceful. For most of our history, we were prey animals. Bigger, stronger creatures hunted us. We survived by hiding, by running, by using tools and tricks to stay alive." She held up her hand, showing her small fingers. "We are not built for fighting. We have no claws, no fangs, no armor, but we survived anyway. Because when we had no choice, when our children were in danger, we became something dangerous." The elders were listening intently now. Even Myra had lost her sharp expression. I did not plan what happened in that tunnel, continued. I did not think about tactics or strategies. I just knew that 17 cubs were behind me, and I would die before I let anyone hurt them. She looked at me. That is the only war doctrine I know. The only combat technique. A mother protecting her children. It is as old as humanity itself. The hall was silent for a long moment. Then did something unexpected. He stood up from his chair and bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect in culture. One by one, the other elders did the same. We misunderstood, said. We thought humans had special knowledge of violence, special training for killing. We were afraid of what this meant. He straightened up and looked at with those ancient, wise eyes. But you are not warriors. You are protectors. There is a great difference. Myra spoke again. We would like to learn this game, this hide and seek, not because we want to fight, we will never want that, but because hiding is something we know, and perhaps we can learn to hide better. Nodded slowly. I will teach it to everyone who wants to learn. And the other thing, another elder asked. The dangerous thing, the mother's fury, can you teach us that? Thought about the question. She thought about the tunnel, the darkness, the weight of the mining pick, the sound of her own heart beating. No, she said softly, that is not something that can be taught. It is something that appears when it is needed, when you love something enough, when you have no other choice. She stood up to leave. But I hope you never need it. I hope your children grow up knowing only the game, not the darkness that comes after. She walked toward the doors, but before she left, called out one last time. Teacher. She turned. In our histories, we will record what you did. We will tell the story to all on every world. For as long as our people exist, they will know about the human teacher who saved 17 cubs with a game and a mother's love. Did not know what to say, so she bowed the way they had bowed to her. Then she walked out into the orange sunlight. Outside the hall of elders, 17 cubs were waiting. They had been there all morning, watching the doors, waiting for their teacher to emerge. When they saw her, they ran forward and surrounded her. Small paws grabbed her hands, furry bodies pressed against her legs, happy voices called her name. Teacher, teacher, come play with us. What do you want to play? She asked, smiling down at them. Hide and seek, they shouted together. Laughed, a real laugh this time, warm and bright. Okay, she said, but I warn you, I am a very good seeker. They ran off to find hiding spots. Little Polly, Sirius Tori, Spotted, all 17 of them happy and alive and safe. Closed her eyes and began to count. 1, 2, 3. The orange sun shone down on them. The wind carried the sound of children playing, and somewhere in the stars above, the raiders told stories of their own, dark stories about a small world where a monster lived in the tunnels, waiting for anyone foolish enough to enter. They did not know her name. They did not know she was a teacher, a woman, a simple human who loved children. They only knew that 4 was a world to avoid, a world where the narrow places were guarded by something that did not stop, did not tire, did not show mercy. They were not entirely wrong. 18, 1920, ready or not, here I come. Opened her eyes and went to find her children. And on that day, and every day after, she found them all.